Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to Whiskey Throttle Media. Really cool opportunity we got today out at Fox Raceway to ride Ken Roczen's race bike, and it was literally the exact bike he raced this Saturday night. All they had done was pulled the suspension off and thrown the suspension on that he used in Chicago, which was their outdoor setting, which is KYB versus Showa that he uses in like a supercross setting. So interesting that he bounces back and forth between the two. That was something that I was surprised with right away. This is a neat opportunity. Obviously, riding a legit race bike is special. It's pretty rare. They don't always like to do that. These bikes are kind of getting parked as they build new bikes for next year. So just right place, right time for a handful of media organizations. So some really interesting things that I was able to chat with Larry Brooks about. We know that Jamie Ellis from Twisted Development did a lot of work on these engines. They've done a lot of testing to get the suspension working right. And I asked about weight. I said, hey, these things are notoriously a little heavy. What have you guys gotten the weight down to? Is that a focus that you guys had? And he said, nah, he goes, we don't even worry about it. He said, I actually like the bike to be a little heavier. It kind of gives it a more solid planted feel. And I was kind of like, huh, I wasn't expecting that answer. They don't really worry about the weight. So as we were chatting about it, he goes, think about like in the two-stroke days, if you're riding a 125, yeah, you're trying to squeeze every little bit of horsepower out of it, so weight becomes a real big factor. He goes, that's not the case with the 450. We're trying to make it tractable. We're working on delivery. That was his exact words. It's not about making more power, it's about delivery and handling. And he actually liked having some weight to the bike. So that right off the bat was a little different for me. So as we got out on the track, I know something about race suspension, and that is, this is just a fact. You can't half-ass it with this stuff. You ride it at 70, 80%, it's not going to feel good. It's going to feel stiff and dead. You have to push it. So we only got 30 minutes on the bike. So I said, all right, I got to get out and get comfortable right away, and I got to push. And as fast as my old bones will go. And the initial thing for me was his bars were a little tall. He runs like a taller rise, and his brake pedal is really high. I typically run mine kind of flush with the foot peg, and his was, I kept kind of hitting it unintentionally just because it's tall. Those are my two initial impressions right away. Then the motor. I wasn't sure what to expect, but what I found was there's nothing about this engine that's super exciting. Nothing about it was like, whoa, that's crazy. Doesn't ever have a big burst. If you watch this thing on a dyno, I'll bet the curve is just like this straight line. Very good throttle response, comes on right away and pulls really long. I mean, it's a very broad power, but at no point in it does it ever kind of ramp up and get exciting and lift the front wheel up. Traction, traction, traction. This thing, everywhere you go, it's just delivering enough power to where it's not breaking the rear tire loose. And it translates into consistency and an ability to really push it. And Larry and I were talking about that afterwards. He goes, think of like, he goes, Ping, it's like in our old days where you had a practice bike that was pretty much stock and you could ride the piss out of it. And then you'd go get on your race bike that had all this power and you're wheeling and making mistakes. He's like, we wanted to make it where he could ride it hard. He could push this thing. And so that's exactly how it felt. It wants you to push it hard, but it's never going to, pull the front wheel up crazy and snap out from under you or break the rear wheel loose. It's just such a smooth delivery. The two things for me that I took away from this and then blew me away, well, the chassis didn't really blow me away. I know the Suzuki turns well. This thing turns like it's absolutely on rails. And Suzukis do that, but if you don't have the suspension right, it does make it difficult, right? If you come into a chattery turn and try to set into a rut and it's bouncing around, I don't care how good it turns, it's difficult to get set up and settled into it. This suspension, easily the best 450 motocross suspension I've ever ridden. Whoever built this stuff, I want to go give them a big hug. It's unreal. The harder you push this stuff, which is typical of work suspension, the smoother it gets. And it is the most settled and calm suspension I've ever ridden. Sections where I was coming in on the production bike and just you know how if you come into something that's really chattery, choppy, your vision almost kind of blurs, like your head's rattling around? I come in with that thing, and it's like everything slowed down. Everything went into like HD. You can just focus on the line you want to hit, and it allows you, it encourages you to come in harder because it's not bouncing around. It's just completely settled. Even one time I kind of slid on some mud into these rollers, and I thought, oh no, it's gonna do one of these, and I slid, and it hit the next bump, and just went and straightened out and settled down. And I mean, I'm thinking, holy cow, you can't even make this bike step out. And it just pushes you to ride it harder. It's like just going, come on, let's go, more. It just wants you to go faster. And it was such a fun feeling, man. Like I was having a blast on it, and the 30 minutes went by like that. I was bummed, but my heart rate was at about 190, just racing around trying to get as many laps on it as I could. But the big takeaway for me was this suspension. Just incredible how stable it was, how calm it was, how quiet it was. Really, really impressive. Now, of course, like the brakes, super strong brakes, not overly so, but just you need to stop, you're coming to a stop. They were asking about the clutch, how I felt, what I feel in the clutch. I don't really use the clutch a ton. I don't abuse it, so I go, felt good. I didn't notice anything one way or the other. Very comfortable, but the ability to come into a turn when that bike is staying so calm and just be able to spot your line, and then it just carves through the way a Suzuki does. And this thing, again, the suspension goes hand in hand with that chassis, and when it's calm and then it settles in, kind of, settles into that part of the stroke where you can really just make the thing corner. It's just unreal how that felt. And I wish, man, I wish everybody could experience it. It was really, really cool. And yeah, just really appreciate these guys taking the time to let us do that. That was a really fun experience, and kind of an eye-opener to how good the elite level bikes are right now. And also, the other thing that was very interesting is that you can make a platform that's this old, right? I mean, there hasn't been major changes to this thing in a decade, for the most part, in terms of chassis and stuff. And it is on par. That bike, I mean, obviously, you see it running up front at these races. It's on par with anything right now in the form that I rode it today. So that is just a testament to how much good work Roger DeCoster did with this bike back when Carmichael and Reed and Stewart and Dungey were killing everybody on it. They made some big gains, and they put this bike so far out in front of the other bikes at the time on a pro race level that it's still competitive today, and just a freaking blast to ride. That was a lot of fun. So huge thank you to Larry, the entire Twisted Tea Suzuki team. That was awesome. Thank you guys so much. Thanks to Suzuki, everyone that was involved in making this happen. Hope you guys enjoyed the little bit of footage and the feedback there. We had an awful good time riding it. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.